Welcome to Lawyers Coach. My name is Oliver Hansard, and each episode of this podcast will feature myself or Claire Rayson, both of us coaches and former lawyers, trying to find out what makes lawyers tick. We'll be hearing from various guests and experts, and then at the end of each episode, we will both be reflecting on what they said. In this episode, Claire speaks to Sarah Hawes, Head of Corporate Knowledge at Herbert Smith Freehills. Sarah has a passion for social mobility and getting the right work-life balance across her legal career. But of course, Claire started by asking Sarah, why on earth did you become a lawyer in the first place?
Well, if you'll forgive me a bit of a long, winding story, if we go back to 15-year-old Sarah having to choose her school work experience, at that time, the only thing I was really focused on was going to university. Nobody on either side of my family had ever been to university before, so that's all I wanted. Thought I would probably do English or history and thought I would probably then become a teacher with it. My GCSE English teacher, though, suggested to me that doing my school work experience in a school would be a waste of time because I already knew what it was like to be in a school. So she asked me what else I was interested in. The only thing I could come up with on the spot was reading crime novels. So she dutifully made me fill in the form to choose some sort of vaguely legal kind of high street solicitor type options. In the end, I actually ended up shadowing the court clerk, as they were then called, they're now called legal advisors, who are the legally qualified individuals who work in the magistrates' court, supporting the magistrates in their judicial decision making. And it was 3 really interesting weeks. And so from then, I decided I wanted to do a law degree. And the rest, as they say, I guess is history.
And it's interesting because you mentioned there that kind of, parents hadn't been to university and you wanted to go to university, and you didn't just choose any university, you chose Cambridge University. So I know that that's kind of meant that you've since been quite passionate about social mobility, and you do a lot of social mobility work at the firm that you're currently in.
Yeah, the firm I'm at now, we have a very active social mobility network. I'm involved in that network. We're doing a lot, but there is more we can do, I think, and more we're trying to do actually in targeting people to go to university and to go to a good university and do a good course, because otherwise I guess we fall back on some of the old excuses that there aren't the right people coming out of the universities. But certainly we are investing more time and effort now in targeting teenagers through whether it's mentoring, sponsorship, whatever. We have a couple of different schemes depending on who we are trying to bring in and bring through. But it's certainly, I think once you're in the firm, I'd like to think it doesn't matter your background, but it's getting people in the first place and doing what we can about that.
And you went from there to the city, which is where we met, and all those years ago. And you've stayed at the same firm, but you've taken perhaps a non-traditional route in the firm. Can you tell me a bit about that?
I qualified as a general corporate M&A lawyer, and here we are, still sort of doing corporate M&A law however many years later. I was a junior associate, senior associate, supervised some trainees, and then effectively you get to that juncture in your career where you have to decide, are you going to, push for partnership or not, fundamentally. I really enjoyed M&A work for as long as I was doing it. I genuinely did. I didn't mind the hours or the stressful aspects. It was a real sense of satisfaction, in particularly some of the bigger, more front page grabbing deals that we've been a part of. But I had also had the opportunity during my time as an associate actually to do an internal secondment to the professional support lawyer team. I did a few months in the team covering another team member's maternity leave. And that was actually just at the time that the Companies Act 2006 received royal assent. So I got, very into the weeds of various provisions in the Companies Act. And it was really fascinating, really interesting, sad as that may sound. So then after I did my secondment, I went back to do M&A for a few more years. But I guess then when it got to that crunch point around, do I really want to be a partner? Do I want to be an owner of this business or maybe not? I sort of had that as another option or another idea in my back pocket. So very cliched, took a sabbatical, and I'm trekking in mountains in Nepal. And I can remember being on my BlackBerry, because we all had BlackBerries then, in Kathmandu, to my then head of practice, basically saying, actually, when I come back, I'm not sure I want to be senior associate anymore. Are there any other options? And I was very fortunate enough that there was a spot for me in the professional support lawyer team. So that was 10 years ago.
Do you think that there is still a notion that, to be successful in a law firm means you're a partner in that firm?
That's not my view, but that's probably because I'm not a partner in my firm. No, I mean, I think there are lots of, or significantly more non-traditional, very senior, well-respected roles in most big international law firms. I mean, at their heart, they are big international businesses like many others. What we're selling is legal services and our people. So, over half of our people are therefore understandably lawyers providing those legal services, but supported very capably by large teams of, pick business development, alternative legal services, legal operations, legal project management, all helping us to deliver better, more efficient services, hopefully, to our clients, while still getting the legal answer right at its heart. I think probably what has changed over the course of both of our careers is that real recognition, development of the other side of the business, partly as the businesses have become bigger, more international, more complex, but also, as have our clients, and therefore what they need from us is different. And you need those different skill sets, that cliched diversity of thought at the table, to be able to deliver the most effective client solutions.
And I think, you say that it's cliche, but actually I think, diverse thinking is something that I'm quite passionate about. And one of the things that I love about Herbert Smith, and I think it's kind of stayed since, from when I was started, that the ability to bring in different people to the table is something that I think the firm in particular believes in. Do you see that in the day-to-day?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And it comes from the top all the way down. Justin D'Agostino, our current CEO, is not just passionate about diversity in all its senses, but he's very vocal about it.
How does that kind of from the top discussion around diversity, how does that trickle across the firm?
So, the employee networks are a big part of it. So, yeah, we mentioned the social mobility network. We also have, a family network, a ability network, multiculturalism networks, those kind of groups that are sponsored by senior leaders, but are actually empowering kind of grassroots groups of employees and lawyers to do things, albeit small things perhaps, but to make change in the right direction, or to support individuals who are already in the business. But we've also got, serious commitment at the top in terms of the Global Diversity Committee. I've probably given it the wrong name, but that's effectively what it is. And serious commitment to strategic priorities around things like gender targets in the partnership and in leadership, which are driving change, and more important, probably they're driving conversations, which I think is probably the biggest obstacle to some of these changes and challenges. People are worried about having the conversations. They're worried about saying the wrong thing because they haven't necessarily got the same experience as the person that they're talking to. But actually, most of the time, people want to have the conversation, and they will forgive you if you, choose the wrong language or the wrong question. It's about having those conversations and stimulating those debates. If we do think there are any obstacles or any barriers, we need to know about them before we can do something about them.
Do you think clients can see you having those conversations and can see that the benefit that they're getting from you having those conversations?
Having these kind of conversations with our clients, being open about the fact that we're having them internally, is just another way sometimes of, developing, deepening the relationship, bonding with them, however you want to put it. And ultimately, of course, it demonstrates to them that what we have first and foremost in our minds is their best interest in solving their problem.
I'm going to change direction a little bit now. Could you tell me a little bit about kind of maybe what the biggest achievement in your career has been and what success means for you?
Would it be boring to say being promoted to my current role? Well, it may be boring, but it's probably true. So I joined the professional support lawyer team 10 years ago, working under an absolutely remarkable partner, Carol Shuckkeever, who has since retired. She was one of the first sort of PSLs in the city, really created the role, drove it forward, kept it fresh, incredibly well respected in the firm and across the city of London. And I learned a lot from her. And then to be asked ultimately, when she decided to retire and leave the practice, to take on her role and lead the team of professional support lawyers supporting the London corporate practice. I don't know, I mean, I guess that's certainly what I've been striving for, whether I knew it or not, I guess for certainly the last 10 years.
Part of your new role is leading a team, and I know you've always had, trainees or other people that you've worked with as part of a team, but now you really do have kind of a big team underneath you. How's that transition been into a leadership role?
I mean, I think it's very different, isn't it? As lawyers, we led very large teams sometimes, but it was on a kind of deal by deal basis, or you had a trainee, you supervised them, but again, they were kind of only your responsibility for 6 months. So to be in charge of a permanent team is I don't know, it sounds trite, but it's much more of a responsibility around ensuring that people have, well, ultimately, of course, we've got to put the clients first, whether it's our external clients or our internal clients, and we've got to make sure we're servicing their needs. But you also want your team to be happy. You want them to be developing, fulfilled, not always doing the same thing. You're just there as a sounding board, give a second opinion, a bit of direction if it's needed, or another pair of eyes. That's the kind of day-to-day stuff. But then I guess I'm also fortunate enough to be, effectively is part of my job to then stop every, I don't know how often, every few months. I probably should do it more often, but to stop and think about, bigger picture, strategic, what is the next big thing on the horizon, whether it's in terms of a legal change or way we're working is changing, or practice development, and what should we be doing as a team to make sure that we're at the front and center of that, and our internal and external clients are getting what they need from us in terms of support.
We've had a funny year where we've had to work remotely, where we've had to manage teams remotely. How have you adapted to that as a leader?
You just have to embrace the various video calling platforms, whichever one is your favorite. Embrace instant messenger if that's something that works for you and your team. The two ways to tackle it, I'm sure everybody's done the same thing, but you have diarised calls, whether it's individual or group, like team ones, that you make sure you never miss. But then also it's just a kind of, gosh, I haven't spoken to so-and-so yet today, just give them a quick try and just see how they're doing. It's interesting, the longer lockdown has gone on, I don't feel that has dropped off at all, which I think is a good sign, that as in everybody's still making the effort, but also I think it is proving effective. If people had lost enthusiasm for it as we'd gone along, I think you take that as a sign that it wasn't really working.
And how do you think that this period of time is going to change the profession, if at all?
I think there will be a recognition, or a better recognition, of more sort of flexibility of working arrangements. So, we've all been, I hope anyway, as effective as we would have been in the office, even though we're all over the place and, possibly at improvised desks or working slightly different times of the day because of other commitments. Hopefully that may help with bringing on or keeping some of the talent that we might have otherwise been losing because of any actual or perceived lack of flexibility. I mean, I do think there's various sort of system changes that we need to, implement. Things like, a lot of our learning and our teaching, our legal training, a lot of that was still face-to-face, because ultimately, that kind of discussion around technical legal points probably is, best done face to face. But we had already started the kind of digital transformation process, but this is only going to accelerate it, I think, around a lot of the basic legal training content, being moved online, becoming interactive, e-learning, that type of thing, which hopefully again it is attractive to the younger generation of lawyers coming through, is a bit more flexible in terms of fitting it in around work and other things. So I don't know, I'm hopeful. I mean, obviously ultimately we need to respond to client demand. So we're still, everybody I think is in a wait and see phase to see, which businesses will succeed and thrive as a result of the new normal, or whatever we're going to call it, post the pandemic and post all of these lockdown measures, and which businesses may face broader challenges. But hopefully, we'll be, as a legal services provider, we'll be in a better position to work with our clients and adjust alongside them.
You've managed to create a work-life balance that I think many people will look at and be envious of. Do you think that, now that people have experienced working from home, and I've read different things because it can go both ways, some people end up working even longer hours because actually you don't have that, psychological break in the day, and you can find yourself working perhaps more than you would if you were in the office. But do you think it's going to help people find a work-life balance?
Well, Claire, I think you summarised it actually really well in the question itself. Working from home, remote working can go one of two ways. I think you can either maximise the benefits of not having your commute, of the limited ability to multitask, and for example, chuck a load of laundry in while you're on a call or something, or you can end up with work just bleeding into every minute of every day. There's also, I think, the real challenge, as I mentioned before, around not having that physical team connectivity. I know that from people who work from home all the time, they do miss that, I think. So I don't know. I mean, I think all you can strive for is your best on any given day or any given week. So maybe sometimes you have a week. I mean, certainly for me, the first couple of months of lockdown, we were so incredibly busy just keeping up with the pace of legal changes already in the pipeline and daily changes as a response to the pandemic, that it felt, that I was working every minute of every day. But then it has, it's calmed down a little bit, or did I just put some more boundaries in place, or I don't know. But I feel it'll then feel like it's back in kilter for a few weeks, and then something else will happen and it'll be out again for a week or two. But I think you just have to accept that, roll with that. I mean, I think our training and our experience as transactional lawyers equips you for the peaks and troughs particularly well. Certainly if you enjoyed that work and you were good at it, it's just those are the kind of skills that carry through.
Sarah, thank you ever so much for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks very much, Claire.
That was Claire Rayson talking to Sarah Hawes, Head of Corporate Knowledge at Herbert Smith Freehills. And Claire's with me now. I really enjoyed that conversation, Claire, and in particular, her views on different pathways of success in a law firm.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that big law firms are now seeing themselves as global businesses and recognizing that as a business, there are different parts of the business that different parts of the businesses work together to make that business a success.
And do you think they make that clear enough when you start in a legal career, that you've got all those different options?
I think when you start off in a law firm, particularly if you start off as a lawyer in a law firm, I think you really don't have much of a view as to where that might take you. I think you go in thinking particularly kind of city law firms, you're going to be a solicitor. The path that you might see in front of you is perhaps more of a traditional one of, we'll work our way through the ranks and become partner. I think that, Sarah stumbled across not corporate knowledge, I guess, because of an opportunity that arose within her career and where she was able to take a sabbatical into part of that team. And she's obviously loved it, and she's made a huge success of it. I wonder whether actually big firms should make aware that there are other parts of the business where they might be interested in working in. Thinking particularly about our crossover podcast actually with Harry Clark, Because I think that the generations coming up will have skill sets that perhaps, you and I didn't when we started off in our careers, around social media, around building a brand, around technology. So I think, maybe that's something for firms to look at. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe there's something about at the outset of a career, making it clear that there are all these different paths and choices that can be made. And it's just not almost like a direct conveyor belt to partnership or nothing. The people I talk to, firms really struggle with that, to demonstrate the diversity of opportunity that they really do have, but maybe aren't prepared to shout about.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And actually, Sarah kind of demonstrates there how, throughout from the very beginning, how, little moments can have huge impacts on your career and send you off in directions that perhaps you never thought about. And Sarah's obviously very open to taking those opportunities and running with them, but actually maybe presenting different opportunities right from the beginning, or getting people to taste different things that, where they might have a role, might be something for firms to consider.
So you get to a point where the firm gets out of the best of the staff that it recruits and develops, and also all those different individuals find the right home within that business, rather than going somewhere else when they find that maybe what they thought they were going to get isn't what they're actually getting in fact. So maybe what we're learning is that there are a range of different careers at law firms, which they should become better at shouting about at the very beginning of people's career. And in doing that, everybody maybe has a better chance of landing in the role they want in the same business. And the firm gets the best out of all those individuals that they've invested so much time in. So maybe that's something for us to explore in the future. So thanks very much for that, Claire.
No problem. It's really great to be back.
Thanks very much for listening, and we hope you join us for the next episode of The Lawyer's Coach.
Lawyer's Coach is brought to you by Client Talk and Hansard Coaching. If you're enjoying this series, please rate us on your podcast provider so that others can find us. If you're a lawyer and would like to take part in Lawyer's Coach, please visit our website lawyercoach.co.uk for further details. And you can also join the conversation on our LinkedIn group Lawyer's Coach. If there are any topics you'd like to hear us discuss, then just get in touch.